Yeah, it was a great movie.
I've always brought games to sets.
I came very close to being cast as Captain America.
I've got this video of Wilson crawling around in the Daredevil costume.
Please welcome to the stage, it's Wilson, Bethel, and Charlie Cox. Thank you for being here at San Francisco. Like, have you been to the city many times before?
I grew up partly here. I went to high school just across the bridge in Marin.
Yeah.
Marin County! Where you at? So yeah, I've spent a lot of time up here.
What about you, Charlie? Have you spent a lot of time here?
One of my first trips to America, actually, I came here, and you know how you get your phone now, like, gives you memories? Mm-hmm. It popped up like a couple of days ago, actually, and there's this picture of me. There's a picture of me in San Francisco, and I have hair down to here. And it's like, and I looked at it, I was like, I forgot I grew up in the 70s.
Do you miss the long hair? Do you ever look back in that time and go, God, could I do it again?
I think I've overaged it.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't want to be that guy.
It's a young man's game, or a much older man's game. Maybe in my 60s I can do it.
Let's get straight into it and talk about Born Again. Now, I'm not going to ask too many questions about Born Again because I know you won't be able to say too much, but how excited are you to just release this into the world now?
Like, have you ever been on like an 8-hour road trip and for whatever reason you can't stop to go pee the entire time, and the whole time you know that toilet is on the other end.
Yes.
And you get out of the car and you're almost, anyway, that's about where I'm at.
I love, can you top that, Charlie?
Yeah. The excitement is dribbling down my leg, let me put it that way.
So you're dribbling, and are you constipated?
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it? Because it's been so many years since we released any Daredevil content. I'm really excited about it. And by the time when we release it March 4th, by then we'll already be shooting season 2. So yeah. It's just a gift that keeps on giving, really. It's amazing.
Do you feel differently about that character when you keep going back to it and playing him again and again?
Well, when you play a character, I mean, I've been playing him over 10 years.
Yeah.
He gets older, which is disconcerting. No one warned me about that. What's weird about it is in 2018, when the show was cancelled, I suddenly was like, I had like a breaking up period, like a mourning period, you know. I was like, oh wow, because we thought we were going to do a season 4, and then that didn't happen, and it kind of overnight we got a phone call that was like, we're done, it's finished. It felt like a breakup, a little bit, you know, in a kind of a weird way. And then, like all breakups, obviously we got back together. But now I'm aware that there will presumably come a time where it really does stop happening, and it's going to be. The longer it goes on, the harder it will be to let go of, you know.
Yeah.
But I was when we were at New York Comic Con, I was chatting to a couple of the Daredevil writers, Daredevil team, comic team, and they're getting ready to release a Daredevil series, a comic that takes place where Matt Murdock is in his 60s. So I was like, oh, okay, great, great. So we got some time.
If you're on a show for over a period of time, you and the character are aging together, sort of in real time. And if the show is well written and the writers are sort of responding to that reality transpiring, then in theory the character is evolving with you in a way, whether or not the show is on air. The show doesn't pick up the day after we last saw them. It picks up 5 years later.
You've mentioned the getting older aspect, and this is it's very physical. These are physical roles. It's hard. Like, you can't train as hard, or it's different. But for you guys, it's part of your job. How do you?
Well, I think what fans should really come to look forward to in Born Again is much slower fight sequences. And they'll be riveting in their own ways. There's talking in between each punch. And
Daredevil has a gun.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of conflict mediation that happens. Sure you don't want to just talk this out?
Did you find it hard going back into that and going, "Oof, right, here we go again?
Yeah, and initially I didn't prepare prepare for it well enough, and I significantly injured my shoulder to the point where I had to have surgery on it. I've put so much more emphasis on mobility now than I ever did before.
Yeah.
And I won't train in the gym without doing probably a 20 or 30 minute stretch, and just concentrate way more on form over like repetitions, and that has been amazing for my body.
Are there any hobbies or talents that you took away from your time filming?
I've always brought games to sets. Wilson and I've got a really funny video of it as well. we played this game where, we put a bucket at the, where that TV is, and we both had a deck of cards, and we were trying to flick cards into the bucket, and whoever got the least in had to pick them up. And so it was in season 3, I've got this video of Wilson crawling around in the Daredevil costume, picking up these cards. But
the irony being that Bullseye couldn't sink a single card in the bucket. When we were doing Daredevil, I learned how to throw cards. So the stunt team, yeah, well, it might have been after that we played that game that I realized I really had to brush up.
Obsessively practicing.
Exactly. That was the wake-up call for me. And so when Bullseye comes onto the scene, obviously all these stunt guys who maybe previously did not have any experience hucking things around for no good reason, suddenly all trained themselves, because they're all incredibly physically adept people, to become like master card throwers. And these guys got so good that with maybe a few weeks training, they could throw a playing card through a refrigerator box like 30 feet away. It was like crazy. And I never got to be able to do that. But I watched it happen.
And do you have a favorite action movie, Wilson?
Probably Terminator 2. I just think that's probably one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
It's not bad.
Actually, it's really good. Oh, same.
Just to piggyback on that,
Yeah.
I would argue that one of my favorite movies, The Matrix. One of the reasons that movie, which is obviously a very high in action, one of the reasons that movie works is because the chemistry between Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss is extraordinary.
But it was sorely lacking in Arnold.
In Daredevil season 3, what was your favorite scene to shoot?
Mine was the fight scene in the bulletin. I still go back and watch that scene because I think that is truly one of the coolest fight scenes, in the Marvel world. Biased, but
What about you?
The prison fight for me was personally a big deal because it was I was able to do so much of it. We did 3 complete takes and then a lot of full starts, like 7 or 8 where something went wrong halfway through. But it is a true oneer, it's one take, and so it was such a cool feeling when we got it, and everyone was like cheering and running through the corridors, and then we went and watched it back to make sure it worked, and it was cool.
The legacy of Daredevil is rooted in you get knocked down, you get back up, right? When in your career have you been knocked down but you got back up?
The first 5, 6, 7 years of my career were incredibly fortunate and very busy. And then I did Stardust, which at the time was a really big budget, Paramount film, but it didn't perform particularly well in the box office, despite being kind of well reviewed. But after that, I couldn't get hired. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't find the right job, and there was months and months and months. And I had to. I was like trying to get work in LA. And I had to leave because I ran out of cash. I needed to be able to go home just so I could get a waitering job again, which was weird, having been on billboards and stuff. And
what?
Yeah. And so I had to kind of go back and start again. And then my agent called me and they said, look, there is a very small part on a TV show. I really worked hard on this character and the accent and stuff. And they liked the character. And then they wrote me in 5 episodes, and then they wrote me in 8 episodes. And then I did 20 episodes of that show.
Yeah.
And it was predominantly a couple of scenes from that show that got me Daredevil.
the hardest hit I took was I came very close to being cast as Captain America. And and this was when I was in my like mid-20s, and went through multiple rounds of screen testing, and
How'd the suit feel?
the suit felt incredible. Yeah, and yeah.
You put it on?
Oh yeah.
Do you have pictures?
And there was all these things that were happening that made me feel like I was getting the part. And then I remember just like my agent calling me one day and they're like, no, actually they offered it to Chris Evans or whatever. But then in hindsight, I thought, who wants to be rich and famous? So I was working on a soap opera during the day and waiting tables at night, and then a career slowly built from there, as opposed to becoming a giant, massive, legendary, international success overnight.
You would have been good as well.
Thank you.
You would have been
Thank
a
you.
good one.
The career that I've had has also felt in some ways much better suited to who I am. I am incredibly grateful for, in some ways, not having gotten that role.
Which specific scene or moment from all the episodes that you've filmed resonates with you the most?
The moment in season 3 where, sort of fresh off a psychotic binge, Dex starts vacuuming his apartment feels like a complete distillation of my spirit. Where the only way to make sense of a chaotic world is to start cleaning.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when I get stressed, I'm just like vacuuming, I'm dusting,
Bro,
I'm cleaning. Everything.
Yes, let's do it. So we'll fucking matching Swiffer it, my man.
Heck yeah.
There's a scene in The Defenders, I have no idea, it's towards the end, it's like episode 7 or something. I realized that Danny Rand's been taken, and Stick's dead, and all of these things. And because of the nature of that show and because of all the characters in it, we were all, what Marco Ramirez did that was amazing when he wrote that show, but was really challenging was how do you service all of these characters, all of whom have got all this history, who've all had their own standalone shows, put them all together and tell a story. I learned in that moment about acting, something that I don't think I'd really appreciated is how much you can convey without a single word, with just a small look in a moment. You can do much more than you think you can.
If you had to pick a character from DC Comics, which one would you think you'd want to play?
I wouldn't want to take it on based on the actors who have in the past because they're so brilliant. But I always think like the Joker would be a lot of fun. If you could find a way to do something to, Heath Ledger for me like just nailed that part, obviously. But that would be, if you could find a new take on it in some way, that would be cool.
I think a Ninja Turtle.
Now I gotta ask, which one?
I think, probably Michelangelo. He's a party dude, so yeah, I think I'm with Michelangelo.
Something we always talk about is those long take fight sequences that run for a long time with very few or no cuts. And I was wondering, what's it like filming those?
Another one is like the episode 2, season 1, and episode 5, season 3, which is a true one where, we really did have to just rehearse it until we got it right, and film it until we got it right, And we did, it was earlier on, that was one of the first takes that day where we did the scene in the prison. Like the second take was really good. And there was this weird moment afterwards where we were like, oh, I think we did it. And we went back and watched it, and it was really good, but it wasn't perfect. And we were like, well, what do we do now? Because we could spend 2 days trying to get this right again. But the consensus was we should try and get it better. And we did.
Before you got your roles as Daredevil and Bullseye, did you ever look at the character and said, I want to play that character?
I didn't even know about him. I'd never heard of him. I genuinely, when you said Daredevil, I thought you were like talking about a noun, like a mountaineer or a rock climber or like someone who jumps through fiery hoops on a motorcycle. That's what I thought Daredevil was.
Same answer, yeah. Didn't know Bullseye was a thing.
I was wondering what your favorite memory was during the production of Daredevil.
On the last day of filming of the season we just completed, Frank Miller came to set. Yeah. That's cool. So, and I was filming with John Bernthal, and so there's me in the Daredevil costume, John in the Punisher costume, and we're chatting with Frank Miller on set.
I didn't know that. That's pretty freaking cool.
That was pretty cool, yeah.
Oh.
Any takeaways, Charlie, from playing a blind superhero?
One of the wonderful things that's come from this job is my association with the visually impaired community. I feel very humbled when I hear from people who have visual impairment or any disability, actually, tell me that this show and this character has been important to them and helped them overcome some of the adversity in their life because of their respective disabilities, etc. So that's something that we always took very, very seriously. It's obviously it's of immense importance that we got that right, and I hope we have. I believe we have. Yeah, it's really, really cool, you know. And actually, only a couple of weeks ago, I was visiting a visually impaired community school in New York, and it's very moving. It's very touching to meet with these kids who care so deeply about the character because they have that extra connection towards it.
Guys, please give on up for Charlie and Wilson!
Thanks, guys.